The 2024 NFL Draft is tomorrow, which means it's time for one final mock draft. This draft is perfect, and don't be surprised if I go 32 for 32. I'm not going 32 for 32. Anyways, if you're new, subscribe to the channel as I will be doing draft content all year long. But for now, I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to my final 2024 NFL mock draft. Enjoy. The Chicago Bears are first overall, and we all know they're taking USC quarterback Caleb Williams. Let's move on. At second overall, I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said about Washington in Mock 5. Lots of analysts are swearing up and down that Jayden Daniels will be a Commander, but the Commanders recently visited with Daniels along with Drake May and JJ McCarthy. With that being said, there are still a lot of questions surrounding who goes here. I love Drake May as a prospect, and I'm not nearly as high on Jayden Daniels, and he is actually my QB4. So despite the rumors, I still have to take UNC quarterback Drake May here. Then comes New England. There are a lot of possibilities at pick 3 for this franchise, including staying at taking quarterback, staying and drafting a generational wide receiver talent, or trading down and adding more draft capital. While I would love MHJ to this team, there's just not a lot of time to waste for getting your franchise guy. I think these guys stay at pick 3 and go with the quarterback, this one being LSU's Jayden Daniels. The Arizona Cardinals come in at pick 4, and with them not needing to draft a quarterback, they are huge trade down candidates. Despite that, I think they stay at this selection simply because there is a generational talent waiting for them here. Sure, they could add more draft capital, potentially trade down with Minnesota to get 3 first-round picks this year. Sure, they could allow the Giants to trade up and get their Daniel Jones replacement. But I don't think they should pass on Ohio State wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., and that's who I had them taking at pick 4. The Los Angeles Chargers are up with the 5th selection in this upcoming draft. In my last mock, I had them trading down with Minnesota to snag picks 11 and 23. But this time around, I'm going to have them stay in this spot. Yes, I still do believe this team could trade down with the Vikings, but I just want to change things up. If they do stay in this position, I think there are only 2 possibilities. Notre Dame offensive tackle Joe Alt and push him to the right side of the line, or LSU wide receiver Malik Neighbors, building one of the worst wide receiver cores in the game right now. That's where I'm leaning for LAC. And then come the New York Giants at pick 6, and here is where I'm going to pull that trigger on a trade down opportunity. While it's not guaranteed, analysts believe that the Minnesota Vikings will use both first round picks to jump up. Minnesota receives pick 6 and 166 from New York and give up 11 and 23. And with the Vikings trading up, there's really only one option and one reason for them to jump up 5 spots. While I don't think they should do it, I think it's very possible that they do trade up to get Michigan quarterback JJ McCarthy. We move on to 7th overall with a very straightforward selection that is undoubtable if the draft falls this way. The Titans could use a lot of different things, and honestly, I'm not excited to see where they go next season. But if Notre Dame offensive tackle Joe Alt is still on the board here, that's who you have to take, and that's who I think they will take. Alright, I really want to get fun here. In my last video, I questioned this. Is Alabama edge rusher Dallas Turner worth taking this high, and is he worth being the first defensive player off the board? I still discussed Atlanta selecting him, but what if they didn't? Specifically, what if they traded down? Welcome back a familiar foe to the table, as the New York Giants are going to trade back up to 8th overall. New York gets 8, while giving up 11, 70, and a 2025 4th rounder. So the Giants come back up for a specific reason, and that's to jump the Bears at pick 9 and get the 3rd best receiver on the board. Washington wideout Rome Odunze is the pick at 8th overall for New York. So that takes wide receiver off the board for Chicago at 9th overall. They could also trade down from this spot, but that's making things a little too chaotic. Even if Odunze was on the board, I don't think he's the pick here. Even if Dallas Turner is off the board here, I think Chicago stays with that position. I've thought it for months that this second pick will be an edge rusher, and with Turner on the board and Odunze off of it, This is a no-brainer for Chi-Town here. Rounding out the top 10 is the New York Jets, and I don't think they should think too hard with this pick. They addressed offensive tackle in free agency, Rome Odunze isn't on the board, and they don't have many defensive needs outside of maybe another D tackle to line alongside Quinnen Williams. If you haven't caught on by now, the Jets should take Georgia tight end Brock Bowers at pick 10. Then after wild trade shenanigans from the Giants, the Falcons are up at pick 11, and I promise this is where they stay. They lost out on Dallas Turner in the end, but they do get necessary draft capital in the back half to address more needs on this incomplete roster. Even if they can't get Turner, there are two other edge rushers worth taking at this point, and one of them is going at pick 11. When it comes to which one is worth it, I think UCLA edge rusher Laiatu Latu should be the pick here, and would be if these trades play out like they did. And then another fun switch up with the Denver Broncos at pick 12. A quarterback is absolutely necessary this year, but I think they could get one later on through a trade up. Also, after recording this script, Zach Wilson is now a Broncos, so that makes it more unlikely. With that being said, they stray away from quarterback and go with a different need. Hopefully Pat Surtain stays in Denver because the Broncos are going to take his outside counterpart in this mock draft, that being Toledo cornerback Quinyon Mitchell. The Las Vegas Raiders are picking 13th this year, and they honestly have a bunch of needs. One of those needs is quarterback, but it seems unlikely that a team that also needs offensive tackle, cornerback, and defensive tackle all desperately would take one here. I've seen a lot of different picks here, but I'm going to narrow it down to O-tackle. Last time I had them taking Penn State's Olu-Fashanu, this time I'm switching them over to Oregon State's Talisa Fuaga. I won't spend too much time here on the New Orleans Saints at pick 14. With 4 quarterbacks off the board and the top 3 wide receivers all gone, this pick is easy to make. It should be offensive tackle, and with Vegas passing up on Penn State's Olu-Fashanu at 13, he should be off to New Orleans at pick 14. When it comes to Indy at 15th overall, they have a good amount of needs including tight end, linebacker, safety, and corner. If we evaluate the positional value for all of these potential selections, only corner remains as a justifiable position to invest in at 15. You have Terrion Arnold, Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins, all being possible selections here. But if there had to be one, it would likely be Alabama's Terrion Arnold. He gets picked at 15th overall. The Seattle Seahawks are up at pick 16, and they have a lot of needs. Edge rusher, interior O-line, defensive tackle, and cornerback all come to mind. Just like Vegas, they have a lot of options at these positions. Jackson Powers Johnson, Jared Verse, Cooper DeJean, Nate Wiggins, Jerzon Newton, the list goes on. Byron Murphy II, defensive tackle out of Texas, is my pick here, but anyone else I just mentioned are also possibilities. 16 down, 16 to go. I still do think that Jacksonville could trade down from this selection here, but in this mock, I'm going to have them stay. This franchise honestly did a phenomenal job filling needs in free agency, and while they have a good amount of needs, none of them need to immediately be addressed. Despite that, I still have them stick, taking Iowa cornerback Cooper DeJean with the 17th overall pick. Incoming straightforward selection and boring selection here with the Cincinnati Bengals at pick 18. Unless they see potential elsewhere, or unless the top 6 offensive tackles go off the board before 18, I do think OT is the obvious pick here. Now when it comes to which one, that could be toyed with, but I think Alabama's J.C. Latham would be a solid pick here for the Bengals. He goes 18th overall. Then with the Los Angeles Rams at 19, we are going to go the complete opposite direction as the previous pick, as I am super torn on where to go here. They could go with offensive tackle or any position on defense, and it would not be a bad selection here. Even taking Bo Nix or Michael Penix Jr. at this spot is not a bad idea. But instead, I'm going to go with All Reliable. I've mocked many people to LA over the last couple of months, but I'm going to stay with my selection from my last mock draft and pick up Florida State edge rusher Jared Verse. At pick 20, the Steelers also have a lot of needs, but not a lot that they should focus on in the first round. We're looking at wide receiver, offensive tackle, or cornerback with this first round selection, and I keep going back and forth between corner and tackle. Last time around, I had Pittsburgh taking Terrion Arnold, and with him off the board, they could go with Nate Wiggins. Instead, I have them switching over to the offensive side of the ball and taking Georgia offensive tackle Amarius Mims at 20th overall. So I used PFF to help me with my mock, and when I got to Miami at pick 21, I realized that I have not had a trade scenario in a while. On top of that, the Dolphins are massive trade down candidates because of their minimal needs. So let's swap some selections, shall we? The Green Bay Packers are my team of choice this time around, and I had them trading up in my 4th mock draft this year. The Packers give us picks 25 and 91 in order to get up to 21. And with that being said, I don't think the Packers trade up unless it is for more security to get one of the top offensive tackles in this class. Unless they like Jordan Morgan more than most, then they stay at 25 and take him. But I think they go up to get Washington tackle Troy Fautanu in this hypothetical scenario, so he's the selection here. When it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles at 22, I do think they're in a tough spot. I have really liked corner for the last couple of months, but as someone brought to my attention in the comments, the Eagles do have former Colts corner Isaiah Rodgers sitting on the suspended list. But that's not enough. Last week, the NFL reinstated 5 players after they got suspended last year for gambling, and Rodgers was not one of them. So back to the drawing board, and with one of the top 4 corners still available, I think the Eagles take the best defender in this class, or in my opinion the best defender, and Clemson's Nate Wiggins. The Giants are back on the clock with 23rd overall, which they received from Minnesota earlier. And with New York possibly taking quarterback at pick 6 or a trade up to get one, I'm going to make things interesting now. Why not just take one at 23? They could go with the safer pick in Bo Nix, who impacts well in the short and medium game, or take Michael Penix Jr., who impacts at all 3 levels, but in comparison has bad medical concerns. While Penix is higher on my personal big board, I still do think that Nix goes higher than him, and that's why Nix becomes a Giant at 23rd overall in this mock. After surveying how successful the Dallas Cowboys were in the regular season last year, I am so surprised to see how many needs they have. A lot of their needs don't involve players who are worth being taken at 24th overall. They have running back. They could go for LSU wideout Brian Thomas Jr. and linebackers and worth it here, but in a rare draft occasion, interior O-line is worth it here, specifically center, where they take Oregon center Jackson Powers Johnson 24th overall. Miami has returned as they pick 25th now, and honestly, I still don't see any great options for them here. I originally liked linebacker to them, but they also signed Jordan Brooks and Anthony Walker this offseason, taking that position off the board. They also signed Benito Jones, Jonathan Harris, Tyler Hart, Neville Gallimore, Isaiah Mack, and Davion Nixon at interior defensive line, which is a bunch. But I still think that if they had to take someone here, it would be Illinois defensive tackle Jerzon Newton. That's my pick here at 25. Tampa Bay has the 26th pick in this draft, and while I do think they are trade-up candidates, I have good reasons for them staying here. This team loaded up the secondary in free agency, signing Tavier Thomas, Jordan Whitehead, and Bryce Hall. Just like Miami with their interior D linemen, I don't think this is enough for the Bucs. And while the top 4 corners are off the board, it's not a bad idea for this team to select Alabama's Kool-Aid McKinstry at 26th overall. Arizona is back on the clock with their second first-round pick of the draft, and there's been one plan that I've had for them the last couple of months. Get Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4 and draft a corner with whatever your second pick is. Again, the top 4 guys are gone, but this time around there also is no Kool-Aid McKinstry. They could slack off and get a corner at 35, but I don't think they would want to miss out on Mizzou's Ennis Rakestraw Jr., so they take him at 27. The Buffalo Bills are an interesting team to monitor this offseason, and here is why. Free agency was not their best friend. Even on top of all of their losses, I don't think they incurred any worse than at the wide receiver position. As I described last week, If you lose Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, you can't replace them with only Curtis Samuel and Mac Hollins. Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU is still my pick here, and even if he is gone, you have a lot of receivers you could take. The Detroit Lions arise at pick 29, and I have to admit, I finally got confidence to trade back with Detroit. I repeat constantly that they don't have any needs worth addressing in round 1, so as a result, the New England Patriots find an opportunity to get back up into the first round. The Pats get 29 while giving up 34 and 103. So with this selection, the Patriots are likely contemplating MHJ at 3, and if they go for quarterback instead, there's no point in trading up unless it's for a wideout, especially noting that Baltimore, Kansas City, and Carolina are all possibly taking receiver as well. So in this scenario, the Patriots go ahead, trade up, and take Texas wideout A.D. Mitchell. And as I just said, the Baltimore Ravens are likely taking a wide receiver at pick 30. They have the options of Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthy, Roman Wilson, the list goes on. So who do they select? When looking at value and needs, I see them narrowing it down to McConkey and Worthy, and putting McConkey in the slot makes a lot of sense for me. So he's the selection here at pick 30. These next two picks are very obvious to me, so let me get through them briefly. San Francisco has one job and one job only in this draft: bolster up that offensive line. They can trade up to get a top prospect, stay to pick either interior or exterior. As long as they spend multiple picks on the line, they're good. So the pick here is Duke's Graham Barton, especially noting that he can play both inside and outside. And with the final selection in this draft, I think it's fairly obvious that the Chiefs go with wideout. And there's one on the board that is super polarizing. Texas wideout Xavier Worthy is my pick here, not because he's the best receiver on the board, but because with his blazing speed, KC could take a chance and try to transform him into their next Tyreek Hill. Well, that is my 6th and final 2024 NFL mock draft. Do you agree with my mock? What would you change? Let me know in the comments section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.